I'm in Salad and I saw The Rescuers Down Under. It is directed by Mike Gabriel, Hendel Batoy, written by Jim Cox. If you haven't seen this movie, I will spoil it for you. This was requested by a Patreon if you'd like to fast track a movie review. Patreon.com/ASEPresents. On with the review. I'm squatting because I'm trying to be like the mouse. And I'm not as small as a mouse, but I'm trying to be. This movie starts and we're following a boy who is friends with this really rare bird. And he's in Australia. There's a poacher who killed the friend of this really rare bird and is trying to get this really rare bird. The kid falls into one of the poacher's traps, which by the way is legal, and the boy, being very obnoxious and not at all understanding what danger he's putting himself into, goes, "This is illegal! You're doing something illegal." So of course, the poacher's like, well, I'm gonna kidnap you now, because a multitude of things. He's trying to see if the boy will take him to that bird that he really wants. As a poacher, he could kill it and then sell it for a lot of money. He's just thinking about the money. He also doesn't want anybody to tell people about his poaching habits. Australia's already trying to get him for poaching, and he's like, nah man, I don't need any more of this trouble. Right before the poacher gets him, there's this mouse that's in this trap that the little boy helps save. And this mouse contacts the rescuers who are in New York City. And they're like, hey, can you guys like help this boy? He helped me out. And he's got kidnapped. And so they're like, yes, we're gonna get him. The rescuers are a whole society of mices. By the way, I never watched The Rescuers, and I didn't know that this was a sequel to that. This was just requested by somebody on Patreon, so I watched the movie. But this movie, it did do an introduction. It was a proper introduction to the Rescuers. Even without having seen the Rescuers film, I still understood who they were. So of course, they're on their way to Australia. There's a couple of hiccups. They got to convince this albatross? They gotta convince this really big bird to fly him in the middle of the New York winter. Oh yeah, to a different hemisphere. It's summer in Australia and winter in the United States, because that's how it works. So they're trying to look for this boy, right? And they're going through a couple of different hiccups. Like, apparently there's this whole mouse society where the birds act like a plane, and they're trying to land this bird plane, but then the bird just goes, vroom, I'm just gonna land anyway. And so they land. And they're trying to find out some information on where this boy could be. So the rest of the movie is basically the rescuers looking for this little boy, while the little boy tries to find a way out of his situation. It's a pretty fun movie. The highlights to me are when we have the little boy is stuck with a bunch of these animals, and they're all in cages, and there's this sidekick to the poacher. I can't tell what lizard he is. He kind of looks like a Komodo dragon. If a Komodo dragon had like a really long neck and was very expressive. Are Komodo dragons native to Australia? I mean, he would have poached it, right? And of course he has his own agenda, but he will listen to his master, the poacher man. He's the one who's guarding the door, trying to make sure nobody escapes. But if there's any sign of jangling keys, he goes and stops them. But of course, there's this really cool lizard thing. He has like little flaps, like those dinosaurs did. I'm sure that this guy is a descendant from that, but he's a little small guy and he's using his tail to pick the lock, and it actually works. So he's tasked to get the key, but he's a little bit clumsy doofus, and there's this whole struggle to have him get the key. But of course, the little boy gets out and he's able to escape himself. You got the poacher man, he's like, send me the location to that bird. Okay, show me where the nest is. I like how they hide the eggs. Hide the eggs pretty well. They like use the nest as some sort of trap for the poacher, but then they actually had the real eggs, and then they're like, okay, so we know where he's at. We're gonna follow him, and then they have a big old following time, and they save this boy. And the only way that they can kill this poacher is if the poacher does a big old fall, like in the classic Disney way, where the main villain falls to his death, because they don't want to show anything brutal in this G film. I thought this movie was cute. I like the big old bird. I will say the color tone of this movie when they're outside in Australia, we're seeing this kid having a fun day. Very warm tones. The outside of Australia, very warm in the way that it's colored. However, in the dark broodingness of his little dungeon where he keeps all these animals, a lot darker. There seems to be a dark overtone, so it's supposed to be like different from the nice brightness. It's supposed to be more evil. And the way that everything is designed artistically wise, a lot of sharpness to the room. Everything about him is a little bit sharper versus everybody who's a good guy in this movie is a little bit more rounded. Little boy's rounded, you got the little mouses are rounded. I even like that guy with the hat, little cool hat. He's a little cool guy. He's like flirting with one of the chicks the entire time, but he's here to tell him about Australia. I can't get over how smoothly animated this film is, and it's hand-drawn. This was before computers, right? You can see some moments where a computer does help with the animation, but it's very few and far between. And from what I could tell, I think at this point in the Disney animating career, they have computers helping them with the placement of the backgrounds, and so it's like a little bit more 3D, more dynamic, but the actual backgrounds themselves, the assets used in the layer, so it goes whoom, like the camera goes whoom, and like the asset goes past the camera, yeah, that is hand-drawn. I feel like they set up some sort of 3D space and put the camera through it and then animated over that, I guess. I wish cartoons, like, actually cared now in the modern day. They cared enough to give this quality of art to the world. This is when everyone was still trying. Now we have lumps of blobs with seemingly no human form or shape. The concept of lead up and follow through is just that basic concept you can find in modern animation, but it's always like a frame or two, and it's always just tweened in via the computer, so it's just easy and static, versus this is using all of the foundations of animation done and constructed by Walt Disney himself. So of course the Walt Disney Corporation would have really smooth animation that applies to all of this principle. And I'm like, man, this is so nice and handy dandy, and I love it. I love the follow through. It's so dynamic and it's hand placed. It's like a crafted. The animation is crafted versus modern cartoons. They're really lazy about it, and it's because of the budget. It's because of the resources. It's because of how much you have to pay somebody to actually like get them to do a good product. Like, it was different back then. It was like a lot less now, I think. I don't know what the animation job market is like, but all I know is what I'm seeing in the final result of the cartoons, and this definitely had more love than a lot of modern cartoons, in my opinion. Let me know what you think of this movie in the comments below. Have you seen The Rescuers? I gotta give this one, it's quaint. A lot of the details are definitely missing in my brain, because I remember the broad strokes of everything that happened, but the in-betweens are kind of just there to pad out time, in my opinion, and just to keep the attention of the little ones. But if you think about it, like, okay, well, this happened, and then 5 minutes later, something major happened, and in the in-between, it's just characters talking to each other and having some sort of character development. That's alright. So I'd give it, it's a solid 6.5 out of 10. If you like this review, watch another one on the platform you like. So $20 Dinos, patreon.com/ASEPresents, one movie review for 1 month. Linktree, support the daily grindiness of all them daily movies. So you can go here. And until next time, mint salad sauce, signature my sour croutons and bacon bits. I'm gonna go to Australia now. I don't know how, but I'm just gonna go there. Goodbye.